Welcome to the webinar, everybody. Today is the Q&A of all about nonprofit websites. So hopefully that is why you are here. We are recording this session, so it will be recording made available, as well as transcripts. I'm going to have it transcribed. A lot of people don't like to watch a video. They would rather just read the answers to all of these great questions that you guys have sent in, and so we will be doing that as well. So let's go ahead and just jump right in here and start. First of all, quick introduction of myself. If you are on the previous webinar with For Good, and you probably know a little bit about me already, my name is Richard Dietz. I'm the founder of Nonprofit R&D, technology training for nonprofit professionals. We work with small, medium-sized nonprofits. We help them with their online presence, everything from email marketing to online fundraising to website development. I've been in the nonprofit sector my entire career. I even have a master's in social work. So I worked in nonprofit organizations well before I became the technology person that I am today. So much like many of you, worked at small, medium-sized nonprofits, no staff, no time, no money, and you're told to do all these amazing things with technology. And then, of course, you're like, yeah, right. And so what I try to focus on, if you're on the webinar, you probably saw that, I try and focus on little small changes that you can make to your online presence that are going to pay dividends long term. So it's not buying expensive software and changing everything that you do. It's making small tweaks, little changes. And I think a lot of the questions that we answer today are going to help further some of those goals as well. So a quick agenda of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to have a quick welcome, a couple of introduction slides. Then we're going to jump right into questions from the webinar. Now, these are all going to be questions that were submitted either during the webinar that we couldn't get to, or were submitted after the webinar on the post-webinar survey. So I compiled all of those questions, kind of organized them into groups, kind of took out some that were redundant or were just basically asking the same question. I've organized them, and we're going to answer them today live. At the very end, I will open it up to live questions. I'm fairly certain 90% of your questions are going to get answered as part of this webinar today. But if I don't answer it or you need further clarification, we will open it up at the end for you to ask those live questions. You can type them into the chat box, or you can even, I'll unmute the phone so you can even ask it live on the phone itself. So as I said, this is a follow-up to the webinar we did with For Good a couple weeks back called 10 Things Your Nonprofit Website Needs in 2014. You can actually go and download the slides for that webinar and watch the recording if you happen to miss it or just want to watch it again because it was so riveting. And there's a link on the screen down there for you to go and do that. But you can also go to the For Good website, forgood.org, and just search for 10 Things website, and it's going to come right up for you there. So that's probably easier than trying to remember the exact URL. So go and watch that if you want to. Here's a quick recap of all the things that we covered on that webinar. We won't be talking about all of those today, but we will be touching on a few of them. So we talked about everything from your most wanted response to your donate button to capturing email, et cetera. If you want to learn more about all of those, go ahead and watch that recording. And I also add this slide in. If you were on the webinar, you remember it. This is a reminder I have for myself. So when I was a kid, my favorite show on TV was Different Strokes with Gary Coleman. And he had his tagline, "What you talking about, Willis?" And this is my reminder as I am teaching about technology, not to use all of these acronyms and all these crazy tech terms without defining them. So if I ever say a tech term or something you don't understand without defining it, just type into the chat box what you're talking about, Willis, and I will go back and make sure to define that. And hopefully with these questions, I've thought them through so we won't run into that danger at all. So let's jump right into the media, jump into the questions kind of organized by broad topic areas, and here we go. I'm going to start with a quick disclaimer first. So I will say that many of the questions that were submitted were very broad, and they touched on very large topics that really I'm not going to be able to cover in a Q&A format. It was like, how can I do online video? How can I do social media better? Those are very big topics. I can't do that in a Q&A format. However, those are topics that I do other trainings about. I do a training on how to get started in online video. I do a training on how nonprofits can use social media. I do a training on search engine optimization. So if you want to get an invitation to those future trainings, you want to make sure to be on our email list. Now, I know a lot of you have already signed up for your email for the email list. If you've already signed up, you're good to go. You're going to get the announcements when we have the future trainings coming up. If you haven't signed up yet, I highly recommend it. There are two ways you can sign up. One, if you just want updates and notifications, you'll get our newsletter, and you'll get, just when we have our next webinars coming up, go to nonprofitrd.com/email. If you'd also like to get our Online Fundraising 101 e-course, then sign up at the URL over here, OF101E. And the e-course is a 5-email series over the course of 5 days. You're going to get a video lesson about online fundraising and some action steps for you to take to go and implement the online fundraising. So it's a good way to kind of get some basics about online fundraising, get to know me a little bit better, see what kind of material I might be presenting and all of that. So you have your choice of which of those lists that you want to. Oh, Carmen says I can't hear you. Carmen, are you dialing in or are you listening on your microphone and speakers? You can't hear me though. Okay, yes, okay. Angela says she can hear me. Let me just answer Carmen real quick. Okay, I'll just have Carmen dial in the phone. Thank you very much, Angela and Roberta, for letting me know that you guys can hear me. Okay, I was getting a little nervous there. We'll just keep going. Hopefully Carmen can get in there by dialing in, and we'll keep going. Okay, so the disclaimer. So again, go ahead and sign up the email list. Then we'll go much deeper into some of those other topics that we might not be able to do today. So starting with the questions now on overall approach. So we had a couple questions that came in. There were things like, what are some easy next steps? And so easy, so I put that in quotes because that's a really difficult thing to answer. It's hard to say what would be easy without knowing more about you. So if we were to have a 15-minute phone conversation, I could probably get a little more about your background, your skill set, and come up with what was easy. But what I will say about that is go back to the 10 Things webinar and just pick 1 or 2 things off that list and start with those. And if you want to start with easy, you can start with things like adding a prominent donate button. So putting a donate button all over your website. Remember we talked about putting it on every page of your website. That would be an easy one that would have big benefits. Add your contact information to the footer of all of the pages on your website, or have your web person add your contact information to the footer of all your website. That's another easy fix you can do. Tell more stories. Now that's definitely an easy one. You should be able to control your content or be able to add content to your website. Just start telling more stories. I think that's very easy to do. I mean, well, easy to get a story up there. It's hard to sometimes tell that story, but we'll be talking a little bit more about that really soon. Focus on the why. We talked about focusing on the why you do what you do is more powerful and impactful. So just grab some of those things, do them, implement them, and you're going to start to see really good results. And so, there is no easy button, but those are some good ones to go ahead and start with. I had another question that was similar that really hit on one of my hot buttons. And this was, they said, what are 10 things your Facebook needs? We don't have a website yet. Any suggestions? This is a real hot button for me. My number one suggestion is get a website. You do not want Facebook to be your only presence. Mark Zuckerberg would love it if you sent all of your visitors and all of your people to Facebook and they went and bought farm bill credits and super poked each other and all that stuff. But that's not what you want. Facebook is way too distracting for you to really get your message across. So you don't want people on Facebook. Facebook is a good way to grab somebody's attention and then you link them over to your website so then you can talk to them and create that emotional connection and all that stuff. So my number one suggestion is get a website, get any website. There are free website builders out there. You can hire someone to build a website for you relatively inexpensively. You need a website. If you remember back to the webinar, the online hierarchy of needs, the website is the foundation of your entire online presence. Without the website, you really don't have anything. So you have to get the website. And if you want to talk to me more about that, please feel free to email me. We can set up a quick phone call. I have some suggestions later on about ways that you can build a website. And so we'll get further into that. But definitely get off Facebook. I'm not a social media expert because the clients I work with, we have not seen a big return on investment with social media. You don't raise a lot of money on social media. It's really hard to get your message heard above all the noise on social media. It's much better to use social media as a tool to drive traffic back to your website or a tool to get people to sign up for your email list, and then you can communicate with them in a much better way. So that's my big suggestion there. And speaking of that, lead us to a next series of questions, which was all about traffic. And of course, without traffic to your website, you're basically a billboard out in the middle of the desert where no one's going to ever see your advertisement or your website. So we had questions like, how should a beginning or brand new website get traffic? How can I get more people to visit my website? How do you drive more traffic to a nonprofit site when you have nothing to sell or give away except specific help? So this is all about how do I get more eyeballs to see my stuff? And there's a lot of things you can do. What I say about traffic is you need to get traffic by all means necessary. You need to be thinking about any single way you can get traffic. You can actually do some very simple Google searches for this. If you just search Google for get traffic to our nonprofit website, You're going to come up with all kinds of great articles about how to do that. But here's a couple that I will highlight that I usually use with my clients and I use on my own site as well. Number one is blogging. We're going to talk more about blogging in a little bit, but your blog is where people are going to want to come back to see new content. Remember, it's all about content. Content is so important with your online presence. And so a blog is a great way to easily add content, give people a reason to keep coming back to your site. That's number one. If people come to your site and they see that you haven't updated your website in 6 months, a year, why should they come back? They already saw all the content. There's no reason for them to come back. So a blog allows you to update the website on a regular basis, like weekly, hopefully, if not more. They just want lots of content up there. Gives them a reason to want to come back. Email marketing. Email marketing is still the number one way to drive traffic back to your website once you start building up your list. We have a whole training we do about email marketing and growing your list and all of that. Using social media. So I just had all that stuff to say about don't use Facebook, but I do use social media to drive traffic. So what I like to do is use social media to talk about a new video we have on our website, talk about a story that we've just written, and then link to the website to read the story. Don't put the entire story on Facebook because we don't want them to stay on Facebook. We want to get them off Facebook so they're no longer distracted. Get them to your website. Tell the rest of the story there. Share content with other websites. So if you have partners or volunteers or complementary organizations, ask them to link to you. Ask them to write an article about you. Ask them to talk about you and drive their traffic over to your website as well. You can create some relationships there. Put your website URL on all of your printed materials. This is a really simple one that I'm always surprised when people forget to do this, but if you're putting out a flyer or a brochure or anything like that, put your website URL on there. You're going to get traffic from people typing it in and going to the page. And finally, search engine optimization is another way to get more traffic to your website, and that's writing content that Google likes, and then they're going to rank your pages higher, and you're going to get more traffic from there. We'll talk more about SEO in a little bit as well. I also have more training on that. So those are all the different ways to get traffic, and I did mention blogs as one of them, and that was another series of questions that people asked, and it was, how important is a blog for online fundraising? Well, I would say a blog is very important, and we talked about why that was, but it's very important if it is done correctly. If you do a blog and you don't update it for 6 months, then you're actually hurting your traffic. You're hurting your website because people are not going to come back because they're like, well, if they never update their site, why would I even come back? So you need to update it. You need to keep it fresh. You need to keep it new. And the way to do that is to be telling those stories. We talked a lot in the webinar about storytelling. So you want to be telling those stories. A blog is a great place to tell those stories. Now, blog posts don't have to be, 1,000-word blog posts. They don't have to be 2,000-word blog posts. You can do short, small blog posts. You can say, hey, check out our latest video and put a video. You can say, hey, there was just a really interesting article in the New York Times all about homelessness. Here's our thoughts on why it's a good article, and then here's a link to the article. That is a perfectly legitimate blog post. You're commenting on something that is going on in the news, and you're giving your opinion on it. That is called content curation. You might have heard that term being thrown around. So the blog doesn't have to be these huge, long articles. You can do really simple, short follow-up stuff like that. Another question around blogging was, what are some tips for an effective blog? Basically the entire webinar that we did before, the 10 things your website needs, all of the tips we gave there are relevant to your blog. Every single thing we talked about there can be relevant for a blog. Telling stories, using video, using images, focusing on the why. I really don't differentiate much between a blog and your regular website, except that a blog is much easier to add content to. Some organizations don't have access to their entire website, but they are allowed to post new items to their blog, and so a lot of times we'll focus on a blog. But they're really one and the same thing. Your blog is no longer separate. It really is just a larger part of your website. So just go back and look at the previous webinar again, and I think you'll get some good ideas there as well. And finally, how to keep your content fresh. We talked about this a little bit. A blog is one way to keep your content fresh because people are going back to your blog looking for that fresh content. But telling stories is a great way to keep your content fresh. And we talked all about how people love stories. They want stories. Tell more stories. And that's going to keep it fresh. Having multiple authors on your blog. So not just having one author or a no-named author and it's just the same person writing all the content. Have multiple authors write blog posts. They'll have different voices. Some people will connect with author Mary and some people will connect with author Ben. and you don't know which one is going to speak to your audience the best. And so have multiple people. It keeps it fresh. It keeps it new. Gives some different perspectives. Also do different kinds of content. Don't just do text articles. Like I said, do content curation where you're linking to other people's articles and talking about why you like them. Do infographics, do images, do video, any sort of content you can think of. Look at what some of the other big blogs out there are doing and gets a lot of good traffic, and just kind of mimic some of that. So you can do all of those things to keep it fresh and keep it. Further on the content, if you recall from the webinar, we talked about the why and how powerful the why was. And I mentioned a Simon Sinek video. And if you just Google Sinek TED Talk, you'll come up with it. Talked all about how the why is what gets people to take action. The why is what leaders use to inspire people to take action. And so this specific question was, what would why statements be for an advocacy organization versus service providers? So what they're saying there is the examples I gave were, a cancer organization or typical nonprofits, and they're an advocacy type organization. So how would they get to the why? And this is actually interesting because I worked with a client that was a public policy think tank, and they were struggling with this same question. They were like, well, we can't. How can we tell stories, or how can we get to the why? We don't really help people. All we do is lobby the legislators, and we get them to try and pass a law, and eventually that gets down and helps somebody. And so what we did is we kept digging further. So why do you lobby the legislature? Well, we lobby the legislature to get them to change laws. And why do you want them to change laws? Because if we change laws, it's going to do X, Y, Z. And why would that be good? And we got all the way down to who are the individual people that would be helped if that law was changed. And we told their stories. Even if it wasn't passed yet or wasn't real, we could tell a hypothetical story about a kid who would be impacted by this change in the law. And that gets down to the individual level, which we know is how stories are done and more powerful, talking about individuals. And that helped us get down to the why. That's the reason they were lobbying. That's the reason that they were fighting and doing advocacy and trying to change opinions, is so they can get down and change the lives of individuals. So it really still comes down to individuals. It's really not that difference between advocacy and service providers. You just have to dig a little bit deeper there. The other question we had was, how do you create one website targeted towards two different audiences, for example, one for students and one for donors? And that is a great question, and we actually did address this a little bit, but maybe I wasn't as clear or as pointed in my critique of that. And so what I'll do is I'll bring up an example we used in the last webinar, and that was IES Abroad is an organization that does study abroad programs for young folks, and they go out there and they do a couple of cool things. And specifically what they do is right up here in their top navigation, you might not be able to see it because it's a little small, but they have a top navigation that says advisors and faculty, alumni, and parents. So basically, they kind of have three websites in one, and based on what link you click, they're going to take you to a landing page that is going to be speaking to that audience. So if someone clicks on parents, they're going to be like, okay, parent is coming here. What sort of information would a parent want? They can provide links to their website that has all the information a parent would want. If they click on alumni, then they're a former student that studied abroad. They're going to want to know about the community, how to get in touch with their friends, all that stuff. So that's the way you do it. You think about your most wanted responses. You think about who is coming to visit the website, and then give them these options to kind of self-select and dig deeper into the site. And it's great because as soon as someone clicks on one of those links up there, you know more about them. You know who they are, and you can probably guess what information they're looking for. So in the previous slide, he said between students and donors. That's pretty simple. If someone's a student, they're going to click a big student button and take them into the student section where they can do all that stuff. And if they're a donor, they take them to the donor section. So that's how you do it. You don't need multiple websites. You can have multiple sections of your website. And as I said, feel free to type any questions in the chat box as we're going, although I will say we're probably going to answer your question eventually. And so if you want to hold them to the end, I'm more than fine with that as well. So the next questions on content, we had a few come in about SEO, or what's called search engine optimization. And that's basically the process of making your website look better in Google's eyes so that they will rank you higher in the search engine. And I actually did a webinar for Good all about search engine. It was called SEO 101 for nonprofits, and I kind of gave my whole ideas on search engine optimization. Again, a lot more detail than I could probably give in this short a period of time, so I'd highly recommend you going and watching that webinar if you're interested in search engine optimization. It's one of those topics where if I tell you a little bit, I could actually do more damage than good because it's kind of a complicated process and you got to look at it very holistically. So I'd rather you go watch that webinar. And again, if you just go search For Good for SEO 101, you're going to come up with my webinar there. And there's a free recording you can watch on the For Good website as well as downloading the slides. And if you have further questions, let me know and I can definitely follow up with you there. Another question that came in was more in-depth on completing a website audit. I'm new at this and could ask for changes that make it worse. The webmaster just does what we ask and charges a fee, so no input involved. Excellent question. And here's the slide that we talked about a website audit. And we talked about it right at the very end, so I think we were probably pressed for time a little bit because of the technical difficulties that I had. Basically, what a website audit is it's asking other people to give you feedback on your website. So as the previous commenter talked about, they said, I could ask for changes that make it worse. Well, you wouldn't want to make changes that just you thought should be made. You actually want to get more opinions before you go changing things. And that's why you want to ask multiple people to review your website. So you wouldn't say, well, I think that button should be orange and let's just make it orange. You can actually ask people, is there a button color that you think would look better there? And if a number of people are saying orange or blue or something like that, then you can go ahead and try changing that. And so you don't want to just use one person's opinion because they could be totally wrong. It's better to ask multiple people. That's why if you get 5 people to do the website audit for you, you're going to start to get some consensus of things that are complicated or confusing for folks, and then you can make those changes there. And again, the key is to make changes and then go and test it again and see if it improves your navigation, see if it improves people's comfort level with your website. And here's the different ideas that I had for doing the audit. So the way I recommend doing this is you grab some volunteers, so you got 5 volunteers, you sit them down at a computer, and you ask them to do these things, and then you watch them. If you can, you record them. You can even record them just with your iPhone or your handheld phone, and just record them doing it so you can kind of go back and watch later. Ask them to make a donation, and then you just shut up. And you watch them try to go through the process of finding your donate button and is it ways to support, is it how to help, all that stuff. And if they get frustrated, then you know you need to clean up that process. Ask them to sign up for your email list. Can they find it? Do they understand? Watch them go through the whole process. Have them go confirm it in their email box. Just watch them go through the whole process. And then at the end, ask them, what did you think about that? How could we improve it? And you take notes on that. And then do it again with a couple other people and have them do the same exact things. And then you're going to start to see some consensus. You're going to start to see some areas that you could probably improve on. And you might not even know what those are until you get the people to do them. So hopefully that answers your question about how to do a website. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be, scientifically, statistically accurate and all that stuff. I like to just get feedback from real people doing real actions on the website. The next section of questions we had was about design. So one of the questions we had was, how do I make it look more professional? Any tips? And this is kind of a doozy. How do you make your website look more professional? Well, number one thing I would say is you should probably use a designer, or you should use somebody that knows how to do design. Because, some people have an eye for that stuff, some people don't. I'm not a great designer. I can copy other people's designs and kind of mimic them and make a website look kind of like them, but I'm not good at coming up with designs from scratch. So I will often bring in a designer to do a new website design, and then I will build it in WordPress or something like that, because I know that I don't have the best design eye. Because you can really make the website look amateurish if you don't have that design eye. So I would say probably use a designer. If you can't afford a designer, then at least go with a theme or a template that has been built by a designer. So if you use WordPress, even if you use Dreamweaver, you can get an HTML template, website template. Use one that a designer has actually built, a theme or a template, because they're going to have put all the good design best practices into that. And then don't go changing too much on it. Kind of keep it pretty standard there. That's going to look a lot more professional than if you go in and try and add all your own colors and all of that stuff. So that would be my big thing. It's one of those things where it probably pays to spend a little bit of money if you're really concerned about that professionalism. Then you probably want to spend that a little bit there. The next question around design was, what kind of designs attract people most? Besides clarity, less clutter, how to get a lot of informational content without cluttering, having multiple pages with internal links, etc. And what I would say is this really goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about on ISIS Abroad, and we also talked about in the webinar with like Besties for Testies, and that is focusing on your most wanted response. And if you focus on your most wanted responses, you are going to have less clutter, and you're going to create those pathways through your website for your different audiences. And that is going to make it less cluttery. That's going to make it cleaner. That is going to attract people, because when they see the button if a parent goes to the website and they see a big parent button, they feel better already. Like, oh, they know a parent's coming here. If I click that, I'm going to get information that is just for parents. I feel good now. I feel like my questions are being answered. And in that parent section, always have an option for them to ask further questions. You know, did you not find the information you needed? Email us and we'll give you that information. You know what I mean? Giving them that extra option. So that's one way to do it, really focusing on that most wanted response. Yeah, so that's number one there. Another question we had there was, do you have a list of top web designers? And that is a pretty loaded question. For one, web design is so subjective that if I say someone is a top web designer, you might think their designs are horrific. And so that's really tough to do. The other thing I would say is you probably can't afford a top web designer. Top web designers do website designs for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. Most of the nonprofits I work with can't afford that. And so you probably want to be looking different places for a web designer. I wouldn't be focusing on the top web designers. I used to have some that I've used. Most of them have gone back to full-time employment, so I am actually looking for a new web designer myself. But I have outsourced this sometimes to different websites. You can actually find some really good designers on Elance. You can find some really good designers on some of the different freelancing type websites. And these are people that, you know, some of them have full-time jobs. You know, they're doing work on the side, and they're actually very talented. If you can get a design done for, you know, $1,000 instead of $20,000. And Angela just typed into the comment box, find a site you like and ask who did theirs. And that's an excellent example. You can also find a site you like and tell a designer, I want it to look kind of like this, but I want different colors and something changed here. That's something I do a lot with my clients when I'm redesigning one of their websites. I'll say, show me 3 websites you like, and then let's talk about what you like about them, and then I can kind of combine those elements into a design that looks very professional, very simple, and very, very clean. But another way to find good designers is to start asking around. Ask your board if they know anyone that is a web designer. Ask your volunteers. Put a thing on your website that you're looking for volunteers to help with your web design, and you'll have people that want to come out, and it's a way that they want to give back. So instead of donating money, a web designer might want to donate their time to redo your website. I've seen that happen many, many times, and it actually works out really well. So just start asking folks about, you know, who might be a good web designer, and I think you might find a really good diamond in the rough there. So then I have another little tip here that no one really asked specifically, but it's one of my pet peeves and something that I finally have some evidence to back up, and that is sliders at the top of your website. And if you know what a slider is that big graphical banner that many, many people still have at the top of their website, and it automatically scrolls through these beautiful, fancy pictures. And people that are making websites or asking for a website to be designed love sliders because they look pretty. And people who know about websites and website conversion and website best practices usually hate sliders because they don't work. And there was a really great article that came out on leadpages.com, which is a website that I follow, where they actually did some studies on sliders, and it turns out that they are as ineffective as many of us feared. They just flat out don't work. So if you look at the picture over here on the right, this is what's called a heat map of a website. And a heat map is where somebody's eye is drawn on a website. And they do these really big studies. They have hundreds of people go through and use a website, and they do eye tracking movements to see where they're looking. And if you look on this, look how many people looked at the slider. The slider has almost no heat on it. All the eyes went down to this section here, to the content. Everybody just skipped right over that slider and just ignored it as if it wasn't there. And there's a lot of reasons for this. I believe there's the banner blindness issue, where people are assuming those are advertisements or things that aren't pertinent to them, so they're just kind of ignoring it. They're confusing. They sometimes offer too many choices. So we talked about the most wanted response. The slider could be just zipping by really fast. It's just causing all kinds of havoc and confusion, all that stuff. And they just aren't working. The studies that I just read on this on the leadpages.com website was in the studies they did, the sliders only received 1% clicks. So only 1% of the visitors actually clicked on it. And even worse, 89% of the people that did click, of that 1%, of the 1%, 89% of them clicked the first one, and almost nobody is clicking slides 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's all just wasted, and you're wasting the #1 real estate on your website is being wasted, and that is that top section there. Sorry about that, I clicked the button. That top section is your top real estate. So you want to get rid of that slider and instead put up there is put your most wanted responses. Put an opt-in for your email right up there. Your email should be one of your most wanted responses because you know if you get their email address, you can now follow up with them on a regular basis and drive them back to the website whenever you want to. You don't have to hope and pray that they come back to the website. So put a donate button up there. Put information about your event that's coming up, something that is going to be a little bit more of a call to action, more of a direct response, something that you want them to do. So I was really happy to see the stats on that, and that's going to be one of my new projects this year is to get people to stop using sliders. So if you want to talk more about that, let me know. I'd be more than happy to. So the next thing on content is storytelling. And we did talk a little bit about storytelling in the last webinar. I also do entire whole webinars about storytelling, about how to better craft your story. But I will highlight some of the notions here. #1 question was, are testimonials the same as stories? And I would say yes and no. Yes, if it's a longer testimonial, it could have a story component, but I think a testimonial is too short to really create the emotional connection that we're talking about. So a testimonial is great sort of proof that you know what you're doing, or proof that you have good services, or proof that you're a good organization with a good mission. They're usually shorter. You don't really get to know the person. When I mean a story is it goes in depth into the background on this individual, tells about their struggles, tells about their low point, and then shows their triumph of them overcoming an obstacle. And people really get to know that person. That's what creates that emotional connection. It can't be done in just 1 or 2 paragraphs. Really good stories are told over multiple articles or multiple emails, and so people really get to know them and start rooting for them. It's the reason soap operas are so popular, right? Because if the story continues over multiple episodes, you really get to know those characters. So I think stories are much more powerful than testimonial. Next question was, how do you gather all these stories? And that's a great question. How exactly do you gather all these stories? I say gathering the stories is gather stories by all means necessary. Any way that you can, you should be gathering stories. #1 place to go to get quick stories is go to all of your staff members. Go to every single one of your staff members and say, what are your top 2 stories about our organization? And I guarantee you they will have stories. It's probably one of the reasons why they still work at your organization is because of the stories that they have in their heads. So that's the #1 place to go. Ask your volunteers their favorite stories. And then start asking your clients or the people you serve their favorite stories. It could be their story, or it could be someone else's story that they heard of and was the reason that they came to your organization in the first place. So that's another way. Another way is the example I gave on the webinar was actually putting a form on your website saying, now you've read some of our stories, why don't you tell us your story, and we may use it on our website. And just ask right on your website for more stories. So everywhere you go, ask for stories. If you've got a live event, ask people what's their favorite story. If you're meeting new people, ask them what's their favorite story. Just get them any way that you can. The problem shouldn't be collecting stories because there are tons of stories out there. The difficulty arises in trying to tell all of those stories because you're going to collect so many when you start actually collecting them that you're not going to be able to write them all. You're going to have to start, sifting it down to the ones that you want to tell first, and then you're going to have plenty of content to go through there. The next one was, love the ideas about storytelling. Would love to hear more about that, ways to do it, especially given how time crunched we all are, and good storytelling takes time. Yes, good storytelling takes time, and there definitely are some tricks of the trade to storytelling. I have a whole webinar that I do around storytelling. I usually offer it at least once a year. Can do it more if people are interested in that. So again, if you're on the email list, we'll let you know when that next one is coming up. We also have a course coming up soon about websites, and we will spend time in there talking about storytelling because it is so important, and it is probably the #1 best piece of content you could be writing on your website is stories. So we'll definitely go more into depth there. We obviously don't have time to do that here because of how long it is. Okay, and I may have just lost the connection. Okay, well, I'm still talking, guys, so we can still go through the questions here, but I'm showing that I may have just had a blip there. Let me go ahead and pause sharing and try and share it again. If anyone can type into the chat box there, if they could still hear me, that would be great. Okay, I look to be back with a connection, and you can still hear it. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. Hopefully you guys can still see my screen there. It shows that I'm sharing, but hopefully you can still see it. and we'll just kind of keep going there unless I hear differently. So the next thing we have is, okay, no problems, Martha says, excellent. So I just had a little blip in the internet connection there. The next content thing was calls to action. So we talked a lot about calls to action, and one of the things that I said was you should have a call to action on every page of your website. And that gave some people pause. So we had a question like, how can you have a call to action on every page? Isn't that too much? And a follow-up question was how to do calls to action on a website without being obnoxious. And I think what people are talking about here is they're afraid that their calls to action is going to be like donate, donate, donate on every single page. And that's not what I mean. I mean a different call to action on all of your pages. If you have a page, a blog post about a video that people just watched, ask them to, like the video, or ask them to vote the video up on YouTube, ask them to like you on Facebook, ask them to send the link to a friend or family member. You can ask them to do all of these small little favors. It doesn't always have to be a big one like donate or volunteer. And so that's what I mean about a call to action on every page. And the reason why we want a call to action on every page is the goal is really to get your users to engage, get your visitors to engage with your website, to engage with your organization. That is what creates strong relationships. That is what creates loyal donors, lifelong relationships, all of that stuff. If they just read your content, they're not as engaged and they're not as likely to stick with you long term. So that's why I want them to do those small favors. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It could be just go read this next article or go watch this other video. If you like this video, you might like this other video. That's still a call to action. So it's just asking them to do something, because then you can look at your analytics and you can be charting how many people are taking those actions. And if they're not taking them, then how can you encourage people to take those actions more? So that's why it's so important, is getting people to take those actions. And the other thing on the call to action is, you think it's obnoxious because you have a call to action on every single page, but it might be that a visitor only sees one page. They might just have come to one page that they found in Google or that a friend sent them, and they come to that one page. And if you don't have a call to action on the one page they visit, they haven't been asked to do anything. They're going to close their browser, walk away, and not have done anything. But if you have a call to action on every page, no matter what page they land on, you're going to ask them to do something that's going to help deepen that relationship. So that's why it's important to be on every page, because you don't know where somebody might enter into that relationship. So next, we had quite a few questions about video, and I was so happy to see the questions about video because I think video is so powerful. And so the big question I had was maybe more examples of images, video clips for a website, how to organize the clips, group them for effect, affordable ways to produce it, how long should the perfect piece be, yada, yada, yada. And then they said maybe this could be a follow-up. And I totally agree that that should be a follow-up. That is way too much, again, for us to cover in this Q&A webinar, but I do sessions all around video. I talk about how to get started in video. I also have a session I do about doing visual storytelling using video and social media, which is a nice session as well. It talks about how to use social media to get people to pay attention to your videos and how to use videos to get people to look at your social media and like you and all that stuff. And so those can all be put up together there. And those definitely things we'll be talking about later this year. So you definitely want to be on that list there. But I'm not going to leave you empty-handed on the video. I'm going to do a real quick video quick fire here, because there were a lot of other questions that came in on video that I think I can answer fairly quickly and won't get us bogged down too much in a whole separate webinar. So the first one was, we have a great video. Where should it go on our site? Can I replace my content? Now, I think we answered this one live on the call, so we definitely had an answer there. But I wanted to address it again because I think it is so important. So a video should just be one piece of your content, and you should put it in multiple places on your website. I would have a page that had all of your videos on it. So, people, if someone's interested in watching videos, they're bored at work, they don't want to do something, they can go to your video page and they could watch 6 or 7 videos. So that's one place you want to put your videos, is some sort of video wall, video page so they can find them all. In other places, you want to put the video in your blog. You want to do a new blog post. When you get a new video, you want to say, hey, here's our new video. We'd love to get your feedback on it. Please share it with your friends and family, and then play the video. You can also put your video on social media if you want to. I prefer to talk about the video on social media and drive them back to your website to watch it. But you could put it on social media if you so wanted. So it shouldn't replace your content. I think it should be an enhancement to your content. And another thing that you can do is what I'm going to be doing with this webinar right here. So I'm recording this video right now, or this webinar right now, and then I'm going to have someone transcribe it. And you can have someone transcribe your videos relatively inexpensively if you don't have a staff person that can do it. You can have them transcribed relatively inexpensively on services like Elance and Fiverr and stuff like that. And once it's transcribed, you can actually put that text on the page below the video. That way, if people prefer reading, they can read it. If someone wants to watch the video, they can watch it. It could also help you in your search engine optimization. So Google is trying to be able to pull content out of video and rank things based on that, but they're not perfect at it yet. If you have text on the page, it's going to be much easier for Google to figure out what that page is about, and more likely that they'll rank you higher. So that's another thing that you can do with the video there. The next question is, do we need a written agreement to post videos on our website? And I think what they mean by that is, do you need a disclaimer from the individuals in your video? And I will say, I am not a lawyer, nor do I play one on TV, so I cannot give a legal opinion to this. But I would say, as a layman, I would say, yes, you should probably have video releases if you're going to be using people in your videos. That's just to be safe. You would want to ask that question of your attorney or your staff attorney or someone on your board that might be an attorney or something like that, just to make sure and find what would be a good video waiver. But I say it's better safe than sorry. If you're showing someone's face and they're identifiable, a waiver is a good idea. If you're doing a crowd shot, usually you don't need a waiver or something like that. But like I said, check with your attorney. I am not an attorney, but I think it's usually a good idea. Next question is, what video length is optimal? And that is a really good question, and there's two answers to that. One is it depends, of course, and I'll talk about what those depends are in a moment. And the second answer is right about 2 minutes. And where we get the 2-minute length from is looking at YouTube data. So YouTube tracks data on all of the videos on their website. And what they have found is at right about the 2-minute mark, people start dropping off very quickly and turning the video off. And that's why all the cat videos are 30 seconds to a minute, things of that nature. Those are the ones that go viral. Usually don't see 22-minute videos going viral because no one's going to sit there and watch a 22-minute video. So right around 2 minutes. And so what you can do is, if you have a longer video, you can break it up into smaller chunks. So why not have 3 different videos that are 2 minutes each to do a 6-minute story or something like that? You can drip them out over emails, drip them out over your blog, so you actually have more content than just one video. However, there are certain types of videos that can be longer. One, training type videos can be longer. Obviously, I'm doing a webinar right now, and it's going to be recorded. It's an hour long. People will watch the recording because there's training content, and you know that you can't get all of website best practices in 2 minutes. That would be a very fast video, and you probably wouldn't learn that much. And so there are reasons to have longer videos, so training. If you're playing a video to a live audience, it can generally be longer as well. So if you're having a live event and you have like a video annual report that you want to show, you can make that like 10 minutes long because people are used to being in an audience and watching longer video. We sit through 2-hour movies as long as the content is engaging. And so that's well as well. So it kind of depends, but for generally, you want to stick around 2 minutes on your videos. The next question we had, and this came in from a couple people, is what's the best way to add videos to my website? How exactly do I add videos to my website? My suggestion usually there is to start with YouTube. YouTube is a fabulous product. It's very easy to use. It's very easy to get things on your website. Even more, it's also great for nonprofits. So you may not know this, but Google actually owns YouTube. They bought YouTube, so they actually own it. That's part of why they rank YouTube videos so highly. Another reason I love to use YouTube is because Google does rank them highly because they like to rank their own content. So that's good. But Google has a nonprofit program, and I put the URL on the page here. If you haven't applied to the Google nonprofit program, I highly recommend you go and do that now. You're going to get all kinds of extra free additional services that the general public doesn't get. Most people have to pay for these additional services. And one of them is you get a free premium YouTube channel, which means you get a lot more options to customize it to your brand of uploading colors and logos and all that stuff. You get to do all kinds of things on your YouTube channel that most people don't get to do. And once you have a YouTube channel, you can upload your videos to YouTube. This could be a video you had professionally done. This could be a video you recorded on your iPhone. You upload it to YouTube, and once you've uploaded it, you'll get this little button here. It's the embed button. You click on that, you grab this code, and all you do is copy and paste that onto your website, and your video will show up there. YouTube does the hosting. YouTube takes care of everything. They track how many people viewed it. They track your usage stats, all that stuff. And all you have to do is copy and paste that code. If you don't know how to do that, you can just copy and paste and give that code to your web person, and they can put it on the web page. So I highly recommend using YouTube. One of the easiest ways to use video. It's free, simple to use. They have great help videos on how to do it and all that stuff. So it's a good place to start. The next series of questions we had was about technology, and the first set was all about CMSs or content management systems. And a lot of people were really interested that I said I liked WordPress better than Drupal. So we had questions like, what's a good web management platform, WordPress or Drupal? What's a good CMS, Drupal or WordPress? And then someone said, why do you like WordPress over Drupal? So I have worked with many clients that have used all kinds of content management systems, WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, Weebly, all kinds of proprietary systems that their designer created or something like that. And I keep coming back to WordPress as my standard for a couple of reasons. One is it's super powerful. On the back end, I can get just about anything done that I want with WordPress using plugins and using some more of the advanced features. And it also is easy for my clients to learn how to use. Easy for them to learn how to add their own content, how to add a video onto their blog post, add their own blog post, do some of that basic website maintenance. It's easy enough for them to use that it's been my go-to. Drupal is more complicated. Joomla is more complicated, and it doesn't seem logical for a lot of the clients I've worked with. Most of the clients I've worked with have become very frustrated with Drupal and Joomla and have moved off WordPress. And I would say almost to a T, all of them have been very happy that they moved off of those platforms to WordPress. So that's just my personal opinion. That's my personal experience. Now, Drupal and Joomla can be super powerful. They can run huge websites and very complicated content management and all that stuff. Most of the clients I work with don't need that, and so Drupal really is overkill. WordPress more than meets their needs. I will also say there's a new player on the market that I've just started to test. I can't give them a full recommendation yet because I haven't put them through the paces yet, but it's called MoreWeb, and if you're interested in that, you let me know. It's very visual. It's very click, drag. There's no coding, any of that. It's super powerful. It's automatically mobile responsive, but this one does involve a monthly fee. I believe their standard package is about $40 a month. But that covers your hosting as well, and so it seems to be very reasonable. Like I said, I'm putting them through the paces. If you're looking at doing a new website, if you're looking at having your website redesigned, email me. I will let you know if MoreWeb passes my tests and makes it to the next level, and I can introduce you to the folks over there. I may be joining their partnership program, and there may be some discounts involved in there. I'm not sure, so you might want to email me on that. Just had a great question come in from Martha, and that is, what are your opinions of Weebly? I didn't know about Weebly up until about a year and a half ago when I had a client come on board that was using Weebly, and at first I was like, oh, I don't know about this thing. But you know what? Weebly was okay. It was pretty straightforward. It seemed easy for my client to add content. I also found some ways to get in there and hack the back end where I wanted to add some things that they really couldn't use. So for a free option, I think Weebly is okay. There's a whole bunch of new players coming into that market. So I would rather you do Weebly which is free and you can get your website up and going, than using Facebook for your website for sure. And I'd rather use Weebly than some proprietary CMS that some web designer built, and then they hold you hostage because you have to log into their system in order to make updates to your website. So I'd rather you use something like Weebly. And like I said, I had a client that used it and it seemed to be fairly good. And I haven't used it that much, but Martha Cooper says, I find it a lot like doing PowerPoint. Yes, Weebly is a very visual power editor. And like I say, that's what I like about MoreWeb, is it is that same model. It's very visual. You drag things around the screen to move them. You don't have to recode and do all that stuff. So yeah, I think Weebly is a great option. I probably should have put it on the slide here, so thank you for mentioning that, Martha. And it's Weebly.com. I think you can go and sign up for a free account, and then of course you can add things onto it if you want. All right, let's get going. We're running out of time here, so I don't want to keep you guys too much longer here. So share buttons. We had a lot of questions about share buttons. Someone said, I don't know how to code share buttons, and someone asked what was the best WordPress plugin. So I found a couple of resources here on the screen. You'll be able to download the slides when I send them out after we're done here. But basically, Add This is a way that you can add share buttons to any website. And there was also an article from Mashable here talking about how to add social sharing buttons to your website, so I'll give you that as well. And as far as plugins go for WordPress, there's a ton of them out there. The ones I've used in the past are Dig, Share This, Add This, and Shareaholic. And you can go look for reviews on all of those to see which one might meet your needs better. So there are definitely resources out there to do that, and you'll get all of those links. The next one was online donations. Again, this was a huge question and a huge area, and also very difficult for me to answer without knowing more about your organization. So the questions were suggestions for online donation company. I would have liked to learn more about online donation pages. We're struggling with ours. What do you think for Squarespace? So it's all about what tool should I use. It's almost impossible for me to answer that without knowing more about your organization. And what I mean by that is, what type of fundraising do you do? What types of fundraising do you want to do? Are you just going to be doing donation pages? Are you also going to be adding in event registration? That may be a different product then. Are you also going to be doing peer-to-peer fundraising or more advanced type fundraising? Then you may want to look at a different product. So it's kind of hard for me to answer. I will tell you the system that I'm using mostly right now is called Abila Fundraising Online. You can find out more about it at abila.org or abila.com, abila.com. They have a product called Abila Fundraising Online. It does online donations, event registration, and peer-to-peer fundraising. I've been using that product for a very long time. I'm very comfortable with it. You can email me. I can let you know more about that. There's also a new player in the space that's really interesting called commitchange.org. And I'll add these links into the email when I send it out, but commitchange.org. They're doing it in a slightly different way than Abila does, and they have a free version that you only pay a percentage of transactions. So you don't have to pay a monthly fee for that. It's relatively inexpensive, actually fairly similar to using PayPal, but a lot more functionality added in there. But it's really for donations only. It doesn't do peer-to-peer and all that stuff. So those are two that I'd look at. And like I said, if you want to know more about that, set up a call with me. We can definitely talk about your specific situation, and I can make more of a recommendation there. And the final question on here is, what do you think about Squarespace? I think things like Squarespace are great, and I think they can be very effective at live events. If you have a live event, people will say, oh, I don't have my checkbook, and you're like, oh, that's okay. We got a Squarespace right here. Just give me your credit card. You can make a donation right now. So you kind of take that excuse out of there. It makes it really easy for people to buy things at live events, all that. So what a Squarespace is, or PayPal has one now too, it's a little thing you plug into your phone or your tablet, and you can take credit cards right there using this little swiper that plugs into your phone. So it's actually amazing technology. It makes it very easy. So I'm a big fan of them for live events and things of that nature. More technology questions. One is, what is the best way to develop a sitemap for our website? And if you don't know what a sitemap is a document that humans don't go and look at, but search engines go to look at to find out what is all the content on your website. So Google will send this little robot to your website, and it looks for a sitemap. Excuse me, need a quick drink of water. Sorry about that. So Google comes to your website, and the first thing they're going to do is look for a sitemap. If they see a sitemap, then they can quickly see all the pages of your website, what the titles of them are, and then they can go surf them and see what content is on those pages. If it doesn't find a sitemap, then it just starts clicking links randomly trying to find all of your content. And it's probably not going to find all your content because it's going to get bored and just not be able to complete it. So a sitemap is a great way to show search engines what's on your site. And there's two ways you can do it. If you use WordPress, there's some plugins that you can add in where it'll automatically create the sitemap for you. One of those is an SEO plugin I use called SEO by Yoast, and that creates a sitemap as well as adds in some additional SEO features that are very super powerful. It's a super powerful plugin, so I highly recommend that one. If you don't have a WordPress website, you can go to xml-sitemaps.com, and they will help you build a sitemap to add to your website right there. So that's a great resource there. Another one was how to get our domain name on Wix.com. And I must say, I kind of didn't know what Wix was. I thought I'd heard of it before, but I was able to find the answer. How did I find the answer about this? It's a great example of using Google. All I did was took the person's question, literally. I just copied it and pasted it into Google, and I immediately got a search result that was from the Wix.com website, and it said how to add your domain onto your Wix.com account, and there was a video there on how to do it. So it's one of those things when you're asking these questions, always think Google somewhere somebody has answered that question in Google, and most likely they've recorded a video on it as well. It's one of my favorite things to do. If a client calls me and has a question, I'll say, hold on 1 second, and I can just type into Google what their question was, and I'll have 3 or 4 links to send them right away. So always go there first. Always think to go to Google. There's great information out there. Hopefully you'll find some of my articles when you search some of these questions. That would be great, or some of my videos. But anyways, you'll find some good information out there doing that. So there is that. So just go search, add our domain name on Wix.com, and you'll find that article with whoever asked that question. The next thing is mobile. We just touched on this at the very end of the last website, and I did mention that 2014 seems to be the year that you need to think about mobile. This is the year that everybody is saying that mobile traffic will outdistance desktop computer traffic. That means more people are surfing on their mobile devices, phones and tablets, than on regular computers, which if you are not ready for mobile, this should be kind of a scary thought for you. So you really need to start thinking about getting your website mobile friendly. I do talk about that when I talk more about websites. A couple of things I will say is, so a couple questions came in. One is, with responsive design, will items appear in the same location regardless of device? And responsive design means the website changes size, changes width based on the device that is viewing your site. So if it's an iPhone, it shows it's thin and narrow. If it's a computer, a full-size computer, it shows it big and large. And no, things don't stay in the same location. They'll actually move around depending on what they want. And while that might not be ideal for people that are really design-oriented, it is ideal for getting people to consume and read your content. And remember, I'm a big proponent of focusing on usability and focusing on getting the content to my viewers. Design is not really as important as that. The number one job should be getting the content. And if someone pulls up on their iPhone and your website looks really pretty, but they can't read it because it's so small, but that icon is in the upper right-hand corner where you wanted it, they're not going to read that. You have lost that person. And so you want things to move around and have the content move around based on it. And that's what responsive design does for you. And so, yeah, it will move around, but I think that is actually a good thing. The next question we had is, what if you need to become mobile friendly immediately for an upcoming event, no time to do it through audit and rewrite thoughts, etc.? Well, there are some services out there that will help you get a mobile website very quickly. Some of the basic ones are free. Some of them you pay a little bit of money for, but they basically will go and scrape your website, pull all the content off your website, and put it into a mobile-friendly template. And then they will help visitors go to the mobile or the desktop website. So a couple of ones online that I know of is do.mobile.com, mobilio.com, and also your web host may have one of these solutions in place already. So if you go to your web host and ask them what they have for mobile, to creating a mobile-friendly website, they might have a service in there that's called GoMobi. And GoMobi is usually free in most hosting accounts. If you use HostGator or Bluehost or one of those big hosts, they probably have that in there, and there's ways to make it mobile-friendly really quickly. So those are the resources to go to for that. That will get you mobile-friendly quickly. They're usually not as good looking, they're usually not as pretty, but at least it'll get you up and mobile immediately, and then you can do other things. Now, if you have a WordPress website, you can actually get your website mobile friendly really quickly in one of two ways. One is there's plugins that'll make your website go mobile friendly. One of them is called WP Touch, and that'll make your website go mobile friendly right away. Again, that one doesn't look as pretty. And then there's also just adding a new theme to your website, so redoing your theme and picking a theme that is mobile friendly or responsive would be the way to do that. We're almost done here. We might go a little bit over. I kind of scheduled this from 1 to 2:30, but I'll try and get things out of here as quickly as possible. A couple other random topics that came in was, one, how to advertise and sell a product line such as T-shirts or gear for fundraising. And that is an excellent question because you know what? It's probably not that different than trying to get people to donate to your organization, to be totally honest with you. It's very unlikely that someone's going to be sitting at home going, I need a new T-shirt. This T-shirt's really old. I'll go to my favorite nonprofit website and buy a T-shirt. That's probably not what they're going to do because they're going to go to some of these other websites to buy T-shirts, with the funny sayings and all that stuff on them. So you're probably not going to be really getting people to buy T-shirts that are looking for T-shirts. You probably are better off focusing on getting people that support your organization, people that care about your cause, people that care about your mission to buy your T-shirt. And really, if you think about it, that's what Tom's Shoes did, right? Tom's Shoes isn't just trying to sell people shoes. The shoe market is flooded. There's all kinds of people trying to sell shoes. But they went the social way about it. So if you want shoes and you want to help kids in third world countries also get shoes, then you buy Tom's Shoes. And so why not do that with some of your merchandise? So just sell it like you would. Talk about your mission, talk about what you do, why you do it, all of that stuff. And then maybe use your merchandise as an upsell to the donation. So as they're getting ready to donate, say, hey, would you like to throw on a T-shirt for an extra $50 or something like that, or an extra $20? We'll also send you a T-shirt. You can increase your average donations that way. You can also say anyone that donates over $100 is going to get a free T-shirt, and that could increase your average donation. So if someone's thinking about donating $50, they go, oh, you know what? I kind of do need a new T-shirt. This one's pretty ratty, so let me go to $100 and I'll get a T-shirt out of it at least. So those are the ways that I think you should be thinking about your merchandise and getting people to do that. And you can even do if you buy 3 T-shirts, we'll give a free T-shirt to someone else or something like that. So I think it's a lot of the same tools. Tell a story, give a reason why they should be supporting it, all of that sort of stuff there. Also had a question on how to better engage volunteers. And I will say that volunteer management, volunteer everything, it's not really my forte, but I do have a colleague that I do a lot of work with. We do trainings together. We've worked together a number of times. And that is Mary Beth Harrington, and I put her URLs on here to get in contact with her via LinkedIn or her website. And she is a master with volunteer stuff. She's been doing volunteer management and things of that nature for years and years and years, both up in Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin. She now travels all over the state teaching about volunteer management, board management, those type of topics. So I highly recommend reaching out to her if you need ways to engage with volunteers. And I know she does webinars as well, and we're actually going to be doing a couple webinars together. One of them actually may be around volunteer management, so I would let you know about that as well. And finally, the last question we had come in was any advice for integrating membership management sites? Now, I don't know exactly what was meant by the integrating membership management sites. I don't do a lot of member management sites. I have done a few of them, and I would say what you want to do is you want to explore member management sites the way you would any other software. And I have some pretty specific ways that you should research software that you're looking to purchase. One is peer reviews, asking your colleagues what systems they've used, what systems they like, looking at online reviews as well. I definitely lean towards personal reviews of people that I know, because online reviews, you know, people only write an online review if they love it or hate it. Nobody writes a review because they're in the middle. You know, no one writes a review and goes, it was okay, right? They either love it or they hate it. So you got to kind of take that with a grain of salt. I like the peer review. I also like to make sure that they have a nonprofit experience or they understand where nonprofits are coming from. So I would do all of those things. If you need more than that, you know, like I said, that's not really my forte, but I could probably find some resources or get you in touch with someone that could tell you more about member management if you were interested in that. And finally, that's it. We are down to the live Q&A. I will open up the lines here in a moment. If you have additional questions that I did not answer, please type them in the chat box. I'll also open up the phone lines here in a second. But like I said, I've recorded this webinar. I'm going to be rendering the recording. I'm going to have somebody transcribe the recording into text. And so I will be posting both of those probably on Monday of next week. So I will send you an email out once I have those ready for you to download. I highly recommend you sign up for my email list right there. You can see it on the screen there. There you can sign up for either option that you want to right there. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions. So if you have a question, type it in the chat box. I'll also open up the phone lines right now if anyone is interested in that. So let me go star.
You are now unmuted.
Okay, everybody is unmuted. If someone has a question they'd like to ask live, feel free to speak up. Whoa, that's a big feedback there.
You are now muted.
All right, sorry guys, I had to mute that again. There was like an aircraft carrier landing happening there on someone's line, so I had to mute them again. If you'd like to ask a question, please tap it in the chat box instead of me opening up the lines. That didn't go very well. So I would, hopefully I answered all of your questions. If you have additional questions, you can email them to me. I got my email address right there on the screen. That is my direct email. That goes right to my inbox, so I will respond back to you there. And I can add it as a note to the recording or something like that. And if that's all, I will let you guys go. It is 2:03. I went a couple minutes over there. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for coming out, and hopefully that answered all your questions. I'll go ahead and stop the recording now.